Good afternoon and welcome to the Civics Outreach Gmail Deliverability Training. We're here for another good tool training within our series, and we're going to dive into all of those best practices on Gmail and deliverability. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, sending email to Gmail and G Suite users. So just to level set for everybody, I want to go over what a bulk email is. A bulk email is defined as an email sent to a group of recipients with or without expressed willingness to be a recipient. So many of you out there send emails to large audiences, and that's what we mean when we talk about bulk email. So how does Gmail actually classify this email? So if you think about incoming mail, it can go into essentially two different categories. The first, of course, is spam. It goes right into the spam folder, and then everything else goes into the inbox. So Gmail has a default inbox layout where messages are divided into a couple of different categories. I'll go through in depth what these are a little bit later, but you can kind of see the differences between primary, social, promotions, updates, and forums. Your primary tab, of course, is where you can get emails from folks that are within your address book, social, promotions, updates, and forums. I'll go through what those mean, but those come from a lot of bulk senders just like all of you. So what is incoming mail? Incoming mail is mail classifications that automatically adjust to match the user's preferences and actions. So for example, if I get an email and I move it to spam or move it out of spam into a different category, or maybe switch categories on and off in my inbox, over time, Gmail will adjust those classifications in order to my user actions. Same with all the other users out there. So what do the categories actually mean? So primary are emails that come from people that you know, folks that are in your address book, maybe an email from your mom or your best friend, messages that really don't appear in the other tabs. Then we have promotions, those deals and offers that you might get from places like consumer packaged goods or different entities that are trying to give you a deal or an offer. Then there's updates, those notifications, confirmations that you may get when you order something online. Then there's those forums that you might be subscribed to. So think a mailing list, a newsletter distribution list, something like that might be categorized in forums. Then we have reservations, flight confirmations, hotel booking, restaurant reservations. So they're easily accessible for when you have to go to that next event or take that next trip. Then lastly, we have purchases, when you have your order shipping and delivery emails that come in that category. So that's how all of our emails are assigned in different categories. Of course, they're not specific to any one industry, but they can be categorized in all of these different places within a user's inbox. Now let's talk about what happens when an email may go to spam. So these are some of the common reasons that an email may be classified as spam. If the link details in the spam content might be asking for personal or confidential information, like a get-rich-quick scheme, send me money, type in your social security number, asking for things that are personal to you. That's a reason that something may be categorized as spam. If the link includes any phishing information or asks for your username, password, social security, credit card details, any financial information, that can also be categorized as spam. Then we have the link that's been sent from accounts or IP addresses that have maybe spammed already, that have sent other spam messages. If the URL doesn't match the link in the description, it might be triggered as a phishing site if the two domains don't match. And then the from header is showing an incorrect name. And you can also go look at your message headers by clicking the link here and making sure that you can remedy this if this might be an issue for you. And then lastly, if your email and domain is unauthenticated. And we'll go through the steps of how to authenticate that through Postmaster tools and our bulk sender guidelines. Okay, so how do we make sure that these bulk emails that we talk through, how they're categorized in the inbox, how do we make sure that they're classified correctly? So first, make sure you authenticate your email. This is one of the most important things that I'm going to recommend here today. Authenticated messages really help prevent recipients from malicious email like phishing messages, malware, spam, and they're also less likely to be rejected or marked as spam by Gmail. So how do you prevent the spoofing and phishing of your organization's email? There are 3 different ways that you can make sure to authenticate the email. One is through SPF. It specifies the servers and domains that are authorized to send email on behalf of your organization. So I know that there are a lot of different domains out there that a lot of you use for your organization. Make sure that all of them are authenticated through this to make sure that you are authorized to send an email from each one of the domains that you may be using. DKIM adds a digital signature to every outgoing message. This makes sure that the servers receiving those messages can verify that the message actually came from your organization and it didn't come from someone who's trying to spoof your domain. And then lastly, DMARC lets you tell receiving servers what to do with the outgoing message from your organization that don't pass SPF or DKIM. SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are all ways that you can authenticate your email and make sure that you are set up for success on your domain. It's not one or the other. We really recommend that you have all 3. Okay, next step here is to send consistently the same email address for every category. So when I talked about authenticating the email, you really do want to make sure that you're authenticating every single email that you're going to use. And I do recommend that you have differing emails for the different topic areas that you might be sending out. So in this case, I'll use the examples of a newsletter, a PSA, a fundraising email, and a volunteering email. You can see here that while the domains all stay the same, the different addresses are different. So you're sending your newsletter email from your newsletter domain, your PSA email from your announcements domain, support, fundraising, volunteer. You kind of get the idea. So really make sure that you are sending consistently from each one of those different domains, because as we were talking about earlier, the way that folks have their inbox set up, it could go to different tabs of promotions, kind of thinking through each category and making sure that you're sending from each domain will kind of help with that bulk sending as well. If you include promotional content within a financial transaction, it could possibly classify the email as promotional. So that's why I would avoid mixing different categories in one message. So having something consistent for each one, really important, but then also making sure you're not mixing 2 different types of emails together. And then thinking through sending email to only engaged users. Make sure that the users that you're sending to are subscribing to your emails, that they want to receive the emails that you're sending out there. Confirm their email address before subscribing to them. Make sure that they know that they've signed up to receive these emails so that they're more likely to open and interact with your emails. Always give users a way to unsubscribe and make unsubscribing easy. It's always really helpful when you're able to unsubscribe from the bottom of the email and not have to go through a lot of different hoops to be able to make sure that the emails in your inbox are really the ones that you want. And then consider unsubscribing users who don't read your messages. Both for the user and for you, it's really important that users who want to see your emails get them, but it's also important for users who don't want to receive your emails to really scrub them off your list. That will help make sure that the folks that do want to see your emails are first and foremost on your list. And then, of course, include a prominent link in the message that takes users to the page for unsubscribing in case they no longer want to interact with the emails or they want to take them out of their inbox. And then increase your sending volume slowly. When you're sending a mass volume of emails, we recommend ramping up slowly on your sending volume and really avoid sending emails in sudden bursts. What we would like to make sure that you avoid is you send out a batch of thousands of emails and then you don't send any for a couple of months. really making sure that you're having a consistent basis of emails with the amount of emails that you're sending. So you're not sending varying levels, but then also that you're sending them on a frequent cadence, making sure that you have enough time between each send, but that you're really sending on a regular basis. And then incorporating that recipient feedback about your messages. And then lastly, monitor your shared IP reputation. A shared IP address can be an IP used by more than one sender. Of course, in the political space, there's a lot of folks that send emails from vendors. So making sure that the activity of all senders on one IP address can impact everyone using the IP. So make sure the IP address isn't blocked on any internet block list. And if you use an ESP for your share IP, make sure that you use Postmaster tools to monitor that reputation and that you look at the shared IP. Next, let's talk about tools to gauge your Gmail deliverability. I referenced this a little bit during the presentation already, but Postmaster Tools is a Google tool that helps provide metrics on reputation, spam rate, feedback loop, and a whole host of other parameters that can really help you identify spam filter issues to Gmail users when sending to Gmail, G Suite, and it can give you a whole host of information when you're using those bulk sender guidelines and when you're sending out emails. If you send a lot of emails, you can use Postmaster tools to see if folks are marking your emails as spam, if you're really following the Gmail best practices that I outlined, if your emails are being sent securely. We know that today it's ever more important to make sure that safety and security of your emails is at the top of the list. And then, of course, why your emails might not be delivered can also show up in Postmaster tools. So how do we get set up? Go to postmaster.google.com to get started. Make sure you're signed into that shared Google account that you're using for your team so that you sign on to the right address. And then make sure that you add and verify your domains that you can use for authentication. We always recommend that you use a shared account in this case to ensure that if somebody moves on from your organization, that they don't take this with them when they move on, but that it stays with the organization so that you can see it for time and time to come. And then implementing that feedback loop. If you're a large volume sender like many of you, you can use the feedback loop to identify campaigns in traffic that are getting high volume of complaints from Gmail users, and you can see it right there in the dashboard on Postmaster Tools. I will note that it only pertains to @gmail.com recipients. So any other domains, you won't be able to see that there. Senders also can embed a new header called the feedback ID, consisting of parameters called identifiers that uniquely identify their individual campaigns. And any identifiers with unusual spam rates might cause deliverability issues, and you can see that in the Postmaster tool dashboard. And then, of course, you can monitor the performance of your domain. I recommend that you go through and really take a fine-tooth comb in looking at all of these ratios and numbers within the dashboard. So first is a spam rate dashboard. It shows the ratio of number of emails marked to spam by users and number of emails that were sent to the inbox. Only emails that were authenticated by DKIM are eligible for the spam rate calculation. So make sure that you do that authentication step first before you go look in your dashboard, because if you don't, you won't see it there. Then look at your domain and IP reputation dashboards. It shows the reputation for the domain, and it's based on the IP and historical signals. So how have you been sending to your list before? How has your IP and domain reputation been highlighted in Postmaster Tools? And then your feedback loop dashboard. It really shows that granular data for senders that have implemented the feedback loop. Then we'll look at the delivery errors dashboard that shows rejected and temp failed traffic, as well as all authenticated traffic coming from each single domain. So make sure that you're registering all the different domains that you might use. So that newsletter donations make sure that you're registering all of those domains. And then you can also see with the authentication dashboard the percentage of emails that have passed through SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And then last but not least, the encryption dashboard shows what percentage of your in and outbound traffic is encrypted. Again, making sure that your emails are encrypted, extremely important these days. Authenticate your email messages. So let's go through how to actually authenticate. We talked about what each piece of the authentication means, but how do you go through the process? So authenticated messages help recipients shield from malicious emails, phishing messages that are likely to be marked as spam or hijacking emails, things of that nature. And you should really follow the steps listed by your domain provider. These methods are set up by your domain provider or your hosting service, and use those instructions to set up the authentication. You can also audit which servers send mail from your domain, ensuring that you know exactly which SPF records are sending from that domain and that they're correctly listed. One way that we see bulk senders do this in the past is adding one of their senders' own addresses to all of the mailing lists and periodically going through each of the emails to ensure that the authentication passes and that SPF records are discovered and any omissions are discovered as well. Now, we want to make sure that you minimize the chance that your messages are marked as spam. We talked through before the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records, but really make sure that your SPF prevents spammers from sending unauthorized messages to appear from your domain, that you turn on DKIM for signing into your messages, receiving servers to use DKIM that verify the domain, that you are the one that actually sent the message. And Gmail also requires a DKIM key of 1024 bits or longer. So make sure that you have that added to the authentication of your emails. Then publish a DMARC record for your domain. DMARC helps senders protect their domain against email spoofing. I do want to note that in order to authenticate the message, the header must match the sending domain. And there was a link in one of the earlier slides of how you can actually authenticate those headers, but it must pass SPF and DKIM checks to be authenticated. Okay, so let's explore some more Gmail deliverability resources. Right here is how you can explore Postmaster tools. We went through the 6 different ways that you can really look into your bulk sending practices through Postmaster tools today, but here's even more resources that you can go through to make sure that you have a holistic picture on how you're sending out your emails. Then, of course, review Postmaster tools. Go to postmaster.google.com, authenticate your domains, make sure your feedback loop is implemented, monitor your performance, and then, of course, explore some more of the FAQs that are out there. It wouldn't be a presentation without me giving you even more resource links, sender guidelines, the sender contact form, Postmaster tools, FAQs, really all there for you to make sure that you are implementing best practices and really connecting with your audience via Postmaster tools and via bulk sending guidelines. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate all of you riding along with me and talking through how to send out better emails and bulk sender guidelines. So with that, I'll see y'all soon.